Here.
James Barr,
Here.
and it seems Eric Nyland is absent.
Tends to show up late. Okay, first order of business is continued hearing for 580 Main Street on the Bolton Office Park. So, Pam, I think we got some updated plans today from the applicant.
Yeah, they came in yesterday. I just want to know for the record that James Barr reviewed the minutes and signed an affidavit from the September 13th meeting. So he is eligible to participate as a voting member in this special permit hearing.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Yep.
Yes, revised plans came in yesterday. They addressed many of the comments that we discussed at the last planning board meeting. If the applicant would like, I'd let him, if he wants to review those changes, and I can go over the outstanding staff comments.
Sure. Hey, Jeff, do you want to go ahead and speak to?
Good. Thank you for having us again. So Jeff O'Neill, owner and applicant. On the call is Brandon Carr from DePret Engineering, that was on last time, as well as Matt Snell from Nutter. So go ahead, Brandon, if you want to address the plans and the changes.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'll just kind of go through Pam's memo that she sent out today, just her comments from last time, and I've got the plans here. I'll share them and kind of point out the additions we made. There's a couple that we didn't necessarily respond to on the plans, but I think we would propose either conditions of approval or follow-up items. Can everybody see the site plan?
Yep.
So the first comment was the height on the lighting poles was above 20 feet, which we've revised to be lower than 20 feet. There was a comment about adding EV parking, and we had anticipated it, but we added 2 EV chargers in this area here that would serve 4 cars. And then there was a follow-up comment today on providing conduits for 17 additional spaces. So we could either, there's at least 17 spaces along the perimeter of the site, so we could easily add these 8, and there's 3 more here, and then these. But we will definitely make sure on the construction plans to run conduits to these center islands here, so that even more potential EV could be added. There was a comment to add a bike rack, which we did here near this side entrance to the building and near the front entrance. Thought it was a convenient spot to add that. We added a calculation on the interior parking space showing we meet the 10%. There was a request for car stops wherever the parking faces a sidewalk, which we added. We revised all the plantings, the trees to be a minimum of 3 inches and shrubs to be a minimum height of 18 inches when planted. We clarified that there should be a solid stockade fence enclosure around the dumpster. And then there were 2 comments related to the parking and what we talked about last time about people parking off site and making sure that wasn't, so there were 2 things that we were going to propose there. And one was there'll be obviously tenant lease agreements for each tenant. So it would be spelled out in there specifically that they can only, if they're working in this building, they can only park in this parking lot. So that would, you know, address off-site parking, and then also there would be directions in those lease agreements on, you know, their deliveries and where they're to go, because if you remember, they have to go through the multifamily driveway and then up through the back of the building. We added some signage here, so if you come into the parking lot and you're leaving the parking lot, there'll be signage that you would see as you would leave to say you can't, no parking for office use prohibited off-site, to prohibit people from parking either on the main driveway, the multifamily, the elderly housing. And then there was a comment about signage for the loading vehicles, which we could definitely agree to. That would just be part of the other site. So we just need to work with the applicant next door to make sure that directional signage for our loading is incorporated, which I'm sure we can, you know, Jeff is involved in that project as well. I'm sure we can add. And there were 3 comments related to stormwater. There was a clarification about the roof runoff. We clarified and showed in the calcs that it was included in the calculations for that water quality unit, and then the overall impervious calculations. We submitted stormwater operation. Well, we submitted maintenance materials for the water quality structure that we're proposing, and a full stormwater operation maintenance plan would be included in the easement agreements between the 2 parties, because there are shared stormwater overlaps between this and the Wood Partners site. And then we added some notes to the plan about a pre-construction and a post-construction inspection of this existing detention pond, just to remove any accumulated sediments, and then to make sure that that's functioning post-construction, and any construction sediment or anything was cleaned out, and that would be maintained moving forward. The next few comments, phasing plan was requested, which we would propose to provide that in conjunction with the other project prior to construction. Dust control measures. There was a question about dust control measures. We added some dust control notes to the site plans, and also that would be part of the next comment, the stormwater pollution prevention plan, which is required during construction. That's handles all your, construction period erosion control, dust management, runoff. That details out your weekly inspections and all your inspection forms. So that would be prepared prior to construction, and we can, the request is made to any of those weekly reports be provided to the planning office upon request, which we can surely do. They're supposed to, contractors responsible for those inspections, and they are required to keep those on site at all times. And then I think the last 3 were really more either proposed conditions on the construction hours, Monday through Friday from 7 to 5, and Saturday 8 to 5, with no construction on Sundays. We were okay with, and then a after construction stamped verification, basically an engineering sign off that the proposed stormwater improvements for the parking lot were were installed per the plan. And then the last one was just the requirement for a certificate of completion to be issued by the board once construction is complete and all these conditions have been satisfied. So that's the revised materials that we submitted reflect all those changes, and I think that's pretty much it for the changes since you last saw the project. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you for going through that. I think Pam and I talked a bit with people in town hall about the need to have the project reviewed by our peer engineer for the water analysis, and I think we determined that based on the review that's been done for the apartment complex, that it's been adequately reviewed at this point. So since we're reducing the impervious amount, and you've clarified a couple of the points in there, so Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're okay with not requiring review on this.
Yes, the town would be comfortable with that.
Okay. So the only real question I had about was on the hours of construction, the Saturday 8 to 5. So I'm okay with doing that to start. I would like to be able to revisit that in case we get a lot of noise complaints, especially from, I mean, I think we're mostly coming from the senior home near there. But I know
Right.
in when we do subdivisions, typically we we'll say we generally don't allow weekend construction hours, or we'll do sort of Saturday by special exception. So Pam, I don't know if you know how that works in the case of a business. Is that any different than subdivisions?
You can condition it as part of the special permit approval, how you feel appropriate. There's no different jurisdictional
Okay.
authority of the board between the subdivision and the special permit process.
And I think on our side, for the hours of construction, really, the tenure of our project and our work really isn't all that long. I mean, we should be here 3 to 4 months, and if we go full bore, and that should be it. So it's
Okay.
it's more or less related to what goes on behind us, because that will be a longer project that probably goes maybe a year, 12 months, a year and a half.
Yeah,
And
no question, that's bigger.
And if it needs to be, hey, we're going to work on a Saturday to make schedule, we have no issue calling the building inspector, just alerting of it. We have a good relationship. We'll tell him we're going to be there on site. So if calls do come in, he can be guarded. So he has that information.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable allowing it for now. I mean, like I said, in a lot of residential subdivisions where there's lots of residential neighbors who don't
Right.
want to hear construction noise on Saturdays, we typically will say no construction on Saturday except by permission of planning board. And that's, hey, we need to get this thing done before the road can get paved, special circumstances. I'm okay with, because of where the location of this project is allowing for work on Saturdays. This is my personal opinion. I'll open this up to the board in a second. But again, if we start receiving a lot of noise complaints, revisiting the Saturday, the allowed construction hours on Saturday. So with that being said, let me ask the rest of the board how they feel about Saturday construction hours.
I'm okay with
I'm fine
Saturday
with that.
construction hours. That's
Okay.
fine, as long as we're able to revisit it.
Okay. Yep. So Pam, I think we'll add that in as a condition. And then as far as the rest of the comments, I don't think I had any major questions on everything else. Anyone from the board have questions on the applicant's response?
Not here.
Not for me.
Okay. So Pam, how would you like us to proceed with this? So this is an amendment of an existing special permit with several things being removed from the conditions and a few things being added. So do you have a preferred way of the board making a motion? Well, I guess first off, again, I don't think I see anyone from the public here, so I don't think there's any other comments that we need. But Pam, would you like us to close the hearing and then vote in a specific way on amending the original special permit?
If you're comfortable with taking action, you can vote to close the hearing.
Okay. So I'm okay with everything else. Pam, is there anything else you wanted to see from the applicant on this?
No, I
Okay.
would be comfortable with moving forward.
Okay.
If I may, just one quick thing on the kind of form of the opinion, Matt Snell from Nutter, the opinion, excuse me, the permit. We had styled the request because we thought it might make it easier as amended and restated, so that we weren't just listing, oh, hey, the old permit's still there, and we changed this condition or that condition. We thought it might be easier for the board to basically, because the decision's 35, 40 years old, to issue, kind of an updated permit that supersedes the old one. So it's amended and restated. And that way you're voting to approve it under the zoning, the conditions that you put into it, that you want to take from the old permit, carry through, and any new conditions that you've got, the ones that we just discussed, are added on. And then, when someone looks at this permit, it's the amended and restated is kind of fully covers everything, and you don't have to bounce back and forth to 1986. I don't know if that works, but that was kind of how we were thinking about it, and might make everyone's life a little easier.
So Pam, you have thoughts on that? I know our town council said amending, but I mean, in addition, I don't know if restating is part of that, or if you have sort of the language for that tonight.
I think we can move forward. I didn't the conditions are very outdated. They're related to police traffic controls at the intersection. I don't think that should be part of this project any longer, considering the high density of the 40B going on next door. So I would be comfortable with moving forward with the conditions outlined in the memo for September 25th. That was addressed to the board, specifically conditions 2, 8, 9, and 11 through 19 be part of the board's consideration for the special permit approval. And then you can ignore the deleted items that the applicant requested in their application
Okay,
that
so
are
I'm looking at
outlined in the memo.
Yeah, the September 25th memorandum.
Yes, the revised edition of that. I neglected to update the date. Should read today's date.
Hang on. Now that I have that. Thought the one you sent today. So the one you sent today is dated September 25th.
Yeah, it should be revised though, with the red notations on there reflecting the plan changes.
Ah, okay.
Sorry, I neglected to update the date and the memo.
Yep, no worries. Okay, so well, I'll first make a motion to close the hearing for 580 Main Street.
Second.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
Aye.
Michael Lau,
Aye.
James Barr.
Aye.
Okay, and now, so Pam, help me out with this approval. So approval for the special permit of 580 Main Street with the conditions noted. I'm sorry, so go ahead.
In the revised memorandum with the date of September 25th, incorporating items 2, 8, 9, and 11 through 19, with a notation that condition number 16 can be revisited by the board based on a butter complaint and upon notice to the applicant. And that's the hours of operation condition.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna butcher this, but I will make a motion to approve the special permit for 580 Main Street based on the planning board memorandum dated September 25th, 23, including provisions 2, 8, 9, 11 through 16, and with the notice that number 16 can be revisited upon complaints from the abutters with notice to the applicant.
It would be, I'm sorry, through 18, condition 18.
I'm
So
sorry.
it would be 11 through 18.
Conditions 11 through 18.
Yes.
There is no 19. Do you need me to redo the whole thing, or is that?
No, I think we,
Okay.
unless the applicant's not comfortable with the motion.
I
No,
think
that's
we're
fine.
good.
Thank you.
Good.
I'll second.
Michael Gore.
Aye.
Where's my list? Robert Romer,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
Aye.
Michael Lau,
Aye.
James Barr.
Aye.
I've been here as well, but that's
Oh.
fine. We got the 5, it's fine.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
Okay.
good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll keep you
Thank you
posted
very
on
much.
progress. All
We'll
right.
be in touch. When do you guys think you're going to start? Do you know?
We're probably getting rolling before the winter because we want to get that asphalt in.
Okay.
So definitely probably in the next 45 days.
Okay, great. All right,
Okay.
good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
good night. Okay. Second item of business is the town planner report. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Pam.
We had some erosion issues on Meadow Road. There's 5 lots out there with steep slopes and long driveways. After the storms last week, some sediment, quite a bit of sediment had entered the roadway and an abutting wetland. So an enforcement order was issued for lots 4 for under the driveway provision of the zoning bylaw for silt entering a public way. And enforcement orders were issued to lots 7 and 8 under the Wetlands Protection Act for violation of an order of conditions for silt entering a wetland. I'm just notifying you that enforcement action was taken because I think technically lot 4 is under your jurisdiction for the driveways. And if you want a copy of those enforcements, I'm happy to forward them along. I'm meeting, the applicant was given 7 days to rectify the situation and install additional erosion control measures. And I'm meeting with them tomorrow at 9 o'clock to do an inspection to see what the status of the progress is. So they were informed if progress wasn't taken and the erosion continues, then we would start considering fines.
So these are our tough developments over on Meadow Road. That I know, Bob.
Yep.
Yeah. So these were, just some history on these, Pam. Like, right, this was a parcel, and they kind of A&R'd each lot out individually, rather than kind of bringing it to us as a, subdivision or a common driveway. So it's tough building on those lots, and I'm not surprised that they're seeing erosion issues with the amount of clear cutting that they've done and just the grade of that area.
Yeah, they're also under different ownerships now.
Oh, really?
So the enforcements were issued to different property owners. Lots 7 and 8 are under common ownership, and they will have a shared driveway. So they have a developer working on both of those. And lots 4 is under a different ownership, who shares the site contractor. So that's made it a little easier to work with them because it's all abutting cleared open area. So the site contractor can move between the properties. They were willing to work together to install some additional measures to prevent the silt from entering the roadway. But because the 5 lots were created in a row from one parcel of property, they are subject to stormwater management requirements from DEP. So we've been after them to get their SWIP reports in and show compliance with the stormwater regulations.
I wasn't aware of that. Can you go back and just talk a little bit more about that, Pam? If there are 5 lots in a row, then
I'm sorry, what part? The stormwater?
yeah.
Yeah, DEP stormwater regulations apply to 4 or more dwelling units to the greatest extent possible. And that includes A&R lots. So if the property is carved off from common ownership, it becomes jurisdictional under the DEP standards.
We didn't realize that. That's actually
I didn't
really
know.
good to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's extremely good to know.
Yeah. And so does that, enforce tougher requirements for the stormwater, or just that they need to have more their compliance letters and that sort of stuff?
Well, more than 4 dwelling units, it's not the full, they don't have to go into full compliance. It's to the greatest extent possible, but we were able to get some ponds incorporated into the lots and provide for some infiltration. I don't know that they were reviewed that way from the beginning, so it's kind of what it is at this point, but going forward, so before permits are issued, we can ask for that in developments like this.
Yeah, that would have been very handy. There would have been considerably more joint thinking about how to deal with those driveways.
Yeah, we were kind of under the impression that we were limited in what we could do because they just A&R'd off all the lots.
Yeah.
The regs are pretty clear on that. So
awesome. Okay. Can you just let us maybe send an email out to the board after you have your meeting tomorrow at some point?
Sure.
And let us know how that went?
Yes. And I didn't know, I didn't CC you on all the paperwork, but I'm happy to. I didn't know if you were interested in any of that, but
that's okay.
If you could give the citation of the DEP reg.
Yeah, it's in the DEP stormwater regulations, right on the state website, but I'm happy to send it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so on to the next one. The land use planning grant, we have all the contracts endorsed and permission to proceed from the state, so I'll be contacting I think he's a planner a landscape architect who provided the scope of work to proceed with the grant. We were awarded the full $7,000 from the state, so I'll keep you up to date on that as it proceeds and we get some workshops scheduled.
Hey Pam, a couple of things on that. The town, it's actually a sharing arrangement, and the town has to kick in part of that, I believe.
The state awarded us 7 in their award, so
Oh, that's great. So
I'm contacting them to verify that because we did only request 5,200 with a match, I think it was.
yes, we did.
So Kurt Garner is a grants contact through the state, so he issued all the documents. So I'm contacting him to ensure that's the case before we move forward and proceed with the work.
If you're going to talk to Randall Aaron, the one thing we do need is a proposal that does not say draft and is signed.
Yes. Yeah, I have to forward it to the state for their approval before we proceed to.
Okay.
Yeah. Does anyone have questions on that? I put the scope in your packet last Monday, I guess it was.
Still drinking from a fire hose?
A little bit. And then the master plan steering committee update. I just want to keep you informed on how the master plan's going. The planning board does have authority over the 10th master plan, and it does require your approval. So it's good to keep you updated on that. We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow to go over our next community forum to review the goals, the draft of the goals that were distributed. I included them in your packet on Monday just for your information. Of course, we will of course notify you of the community forum as well as many of the other residents in town, as many people as we can reach. We're going to discuss public outreach tomorrow, review the goals, and just discuss how the workshop flow will occur to get the most input as possible.
It would also be very useful to get any comments you have on those goals. The board.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Address to the board? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And so the purpose of that outreach meeting is going to be just to go review basically show the town, here are all the goals that we're working towards, and see if people have comments or questions about them.
Yes.
Or add or take away or just get general community input.
Okay.
I think those were developed from the community workshops held so far and the various surveys that were done. So now we take them back and put them out there to see if anything was forgotten or needs to be amended or expanded upon. So I think that's pretty much the goal of the forum.
Excellent.
And then I distributed, that was the latest of the bylaw. We had talked about working on various zoning bylaw amendments. I don't know if that is the board's recollection of topics that you've discussed so far. I found that as one of the latest kind of topics that were listed in the staff exit memos that were provided by the last planner.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty complete.
I don't remember everything you wanted to do with them, but yeah, those look like things we've certainly talked about.
It might be interesting to try to prioritize those. I think housing is a very big issue. What can we do to accommodate? They talked about duplex housing and that sort of thing, and that's something that Randall Arendt will be delighted to talk about, coming up with other innovative approaches to get different and more housing in without disrupting the character of the town.
Yeah, I mean, so we just had I was thinking about this, that we just had a accessory dwelling unit, a detached accessory dwelling unit permit. I wondered if moving that to be a by right ADU, detached ADU by right. I believe we do that with ADUs that are attached to a building. Those are by right. Where in a detached is by special permit. I don't know if there's a reason not to do that. I mean, I'm generally in favor of any way we can increase the housing stock or where people can live, and I love ADUs.
Yeah, I think if you do it by right, and that's got into a big conversation, and I think it's been resolved in Harvard. But you need to be fairly specific if it's going to be by right. And the developers are looking for that as well. They're interested in by right, but they want some specificity in it. And they really want to avoid the process of going through a special permit, which may depend on the perspectives of individual members of the planning board.
That would be something I would be in favor of at least, looking into to see if there's reasons not to do it.
Pam, do you know if there are examples of that by right for detached?
For detached, I don't know that.
It might be worth looking into it and seeing if, what's out there and what the experience has been with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when do you expect the master plan work to kind of be done by?
Realistically, I think probably the middle of next year. I think we're not. The key thing is to get these goals out and pretty much agreed upon, commented on. The existing conditions is essentially finished. We've commented on them. A number of them have been incorporated. But the next step beyond that is to take those goals and turn them into prioritized, concrete recommendations for an implementation matrix, which is the way it went the last time. And then that's broken out by the authority or organization that is responsible in the implementation matrix for executing that. And that's the mechanism by which all those are tracked.
This is Eric. So sorry, I don't have my video on. I'm on my phone, so I don't want to annoy you guys with a bouncing video. But I think we should look into. I don't know if we can implement it this year or not, but increasing the acreage. I know it's on your list for farms to be able to have an agricultural business. It seems like that would be in line with the direction that the master plan is going. So I was just thinking it would be good to kind of throw out a bylaw there that would counterbalance the increased taxes that farms and bigger plots of land will get with the school and stuff. I mean, if the board doesn't agree, that's fine. But I think we should at least look into it.
Sorry, Eric. Do you want to reduce the
increase
size of the acreage considered a farm, or?
Yeah. So right now, I think you have to have 15 or 20 acres in order to make use of the accessory business to a farm. That number is, it's either 15 or 20 acres. I would like to decrease it to 5 acres or so, to allow a potential farm to table type restaurant in a farming, because we don't have an agricultural district. It's all residential. That's 10 acres and they have a small farm. They could have a small farm to table accessory type business with a smaller plot of land. Right now it's 15 or 20 acres. So I would like us to look into that as an option.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting to look into.
I would agree with that.
Does the being a right to farm community help us with that or change anything with that?
I mean, the right to farm is just that. I mean, it's all residentially zoned. So if you have a neighbor that's complaining about farm equipment, they can't really go after a farm for farm equipment because we're right to farm. But this bylaw, the accessory business bylaw, which is essentially how Jace is open at the Neshoba Valley, is their accessory to that farm. I mean, I'm not even sure if anybody would ever be able to utilize it, and actually that Cultivate Care Farm, who does the animal therapy, if this was in place, that would have been easier, but it was tricky for them to do that because I don't think they had the acreage needed to have like accessory farm. So I mean, we need to
acres anyway, right?
yeah we need to look at all sides of it, but I'm just saying, we should look at that potentially this year and see what other towns have for accessory business to agriculture, and maybe just understand that bylaw as a whole and how we can utilize it to help farms out in any way.
Yeah. No, I'd be favorable looking into that.
Eric, are you familiar with other towns and how they've done that, what the implications are and the sizes that they've reduced?
No, I haven't. So that's why we need to investigate more.
Yeah, the other part of that is, what are the limitations of Chapter 61?
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit I don't know all the ins and outs of everything, but it seems like it would be a helpful thing. But if if there's negatives that I'm not thinking of, then that's fine too. But I'd like to investigate it a little bit.
If we are going to encourage agriculture, we should encourage agriculture.
Right, exactly.
What was the adaptive reuse bylaw?
That's. Go ahead, Pam. Do you want to talk generally about what? I mean, my understanding has been that if you have a historical structure and you want to turn it into something else, you can do that. I have already had some interesting feedback. You change, if I'm not as concerned as they are, but I think that's something worth looking into.
And that would be like the main residence as opposed to the barn, historical barn bylaw that we already have.
Yeah, it's very much for residents as much as.
And Bob, I think you said that phosphid would be one of the things that will be discussed in that the grant that we qualified for.
Yeah, I mean, it's phosphid on steroids. It's more innovative than phosphid. I mean, phosphid is percent land, etc. But this goes on to a bigger perspective, and it addresses your issue, Mike, about different kinds of housing. And Randall's has come up with some pretty innovative ways to which there may be some big reaction in town, such as having condominiums with small units, but lots and lots of land around them. So you're getting lots of people in a small place and maintaining the character of the area.
So that would definitely be like a separate thing, not just like changing the existing phosphid, you mean?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Did we talk at some point about not doing phosphid by right, but more allowing it to be an option? I mean, right now, I know developers have to present to us a traditional A&R plan for a subdivision, or a traditional subdivision plan, and then phosphid. And I'm trying to think since we've had phosphid, if anyone has done traditional and not the phosphid.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I think we are the ones that will ultimately choose the path. I think the traditional is what basically generates the number of units you can have, and then it gets condensed in the phosphid. So I'm not sure if you do phosphid by right, how you would calculate out, how many structures can be built.
I mean, it's whatever's allowed through the phosphid, right? I guess the point is we make people jump through this hoop of doing a traditional subdivision when we always go with the phosphid. So is it Are we just
Well,
like
what
making?
I'm thinking though is, say the traditional, I'm just saying how it works. Say the traditional subdivision can fit 20 houses. Then you could put the 20 houses with the phosphid, which was, a more condensed spot. What I'm saying is, if we didn't do the traditional at all, then I don't know how we would come up with that 20 house number. That's how like the number of structures is kind of rated.
Well, maybe
If you could more in terms of like they have to present to us all these plans of the traditional when we aren't going to go with them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I know what you're saying. If there was a way that they didn't have to put as much work, but they could, just not do all the engineering work, but just
yeah, I imagine that drives up the cost of it to have to present two sets of plans when we always prefer the phosphid.
Right, exactly.
Well, and they do too.
Yeah.
The trend now is for, dare I say, bigger and more expensive houses with less land and lots of open space around them. And that, that is directly addressed by phosphid.
Yeah.
So it's a good point, Mike. Is there a simpler way?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it always just feels like we've made a lot of additional work for people when we know the option that we want. So I don't know if that's something Randall would speak to, or if Pam.
Yes, he will.
Pam, are you kind of coming up to speed on phosphid? I don't know if they had that in.
We had a cluster, but we didn't require a plan. We did it based on a formula.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there was some good formula. Yeah.
But I mean, there is a formula for what they present in the phosphid.
Oh, for the yield plan I'm referring to. So we referred to the conventional plan as the yield plan, and there was a formula that was based to calculate the number of units that could be developed under conventional subdivision. And then we use that based on the formula to develop the cluster.
But there are a number of cluster development approaches in towns around us. I mean, Congress, a good one, Acton. I mean,
it's kind of those big changes, definitely wait for the master plan. But I am all for coming up with different housing options. But I think kind of in the spirit of like waiting for the master plan. But I mean, there's probably some things that I don't know if they just things that would like make your life easier, Pam, like the driveway permits, if you want us to change things like that.
I have to it's unusual to have that under the planning board's jurisdiction unless it's some sort of shared driveway. So I would like to take a look at that. The backland lots are also a little odd by the special permit to me. So I'd like to take a look at that in more detail. The special permit, which allows the creation of backland lots by A&R, just kind of odd. I don't know why we're doing it that way, especially with no grading or development plans for the property. So yeah, I'd like to take a look at that a little bit.
Well, I think it would be good to go back and look at Meadow Road for individual and shared driveways and try to understand how we could have avoided that. Right now the driveway permit has very, very limited criteria. And actually in the case of Meadow Road, the developers provided virtually everything we needed to realize there wasn't a hope in the world of mitigating drainage onto the road, having looked at those original applications. And is there a way that we could, without getting into a lot of engineering, do a more intelligent review of driveway permits and the topography and the characteristics of the land to basically say, this permit doesn't meet the requirements. We just flat out don't believe you.
So in that case, you would prefer to, I mean, not only keep the driveway permits under the planning review, but have us actually review them, which is a thing that we don't do today.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point? If we don't review them, why have it?
If you're gonna, yeah, if you're gonna go through the special permit process, I think it's important to collect enough information to make a decision to address issues like that. Or create driveway regulations under DPW review that are more stringent. Or a lot of communities address these type of lots through their stormwater regulations. So towns are adopting stormwater regulations. That's a requirement from the state actually, and they're addressing land disturbance with 20,000 square feet or more, requiring infiltration and detention areas on single family home construction, which is going to drive up the cost as well. But you can look at that criteria and set triggers that aren't so restrictive. You can do it based on slope or amount of disturbed area.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And I think I went back and looked at the applications for Meadow Road. And if we had really reviewed those applications, and we didn't, I mean, it was just a quick review, and yeah, you meet the basic grade criteria and the rest of it. But if you'd gone back and looked at the topos that were provided in the application, there would have been many more questions.
Which application? Talking about the A&R or I mean, the things that Meadow came to us for were the A&R and then the shade tree hearings. Like
Right.
that was what we had purview over.
No, this is just the driveway permits, Mike.
Yeah, which don't ever, like, we don't ever review those.
No, and that's the point. That
Yeah,
they were approved and signed off by, I guess, 3 people. But if you got back and looked at them as a civil engineer, they didn't make a lot of sense. And what they've actually done is what they said they were going to do.
so and Pam, to your point, I think you're saying that we don't keep those under the planning board, but have stricter criteria for driveway permits.
There's different things you can do, and stormwater regs are things I've had experience with, and they do them administratively with representatives from, town staff. I've seen them done where the town engineer and the planner and the Concom agent and the DPW highway department, whatever it is, the makeup is, sits and reviews the plan and has the hearing in-house and can require the additional erosion control measures and infiltration during that process. And it doesn't require a butter notification, but you get to address some of these erosion control issues that occur on these steep slopes and long driveways. So I've seen it done different ways. That to me is probably the most effective because you have everyone looking at it and it doesn't bog the applicant down with hearings, and it can be done administratively fairly quickly. It still requires notice and, in the newspaper and that type of thing, but hearings can get scheduled quickly and decisions can get issued, but there's still authority to inspect and enforce.
My point is, if we're going to review it, and a multidiscipline review within town staff is a great way to do it, but it needs to be truly reviewed.
Yeah, Pam, I mean, you have great experience in a lot of these different areas. So anywhere that you see that we can make improvements to the process and
yeah, it's not just the whole lot's the problem, right? It's not just the driveway. So
yeah,
you want to remove it from the driveway.
But they did provide all the information for the whole lot. They provided a topo and everything, which is impressive, but wasn't reviewed by somebody who understood, stormwater and drainage.
And it is subject to stormwater regs, so we're going back and kind of asking for things after the fact, and they've been receptive to it, but when it starts to cost a lot of money, they're not going to be receptive to it. So it's hard to backtrack.
Yeah. So, let's look forward and let them know what our expectations are and who's going to look at it and what the criteria is. And it's not going to cost them a whole lot of to do things ex post facto, which is, wow, what a mess.
Any other bylaws people wanted to discuss? I mean, I think this is something we can kind of revisit these periodically in our meetings and maybe decide on a few to bring to town meeting in the spring.
Can I suggest we just develop a list and prioritize them? We can add or take away from the list at the next meeting and then start to prioritize
Yeah, that's great.
the items and kind of check them off. Some of them are bigger and probably need more time,
Yeah, definitely.
like
Yeah, the
their
little ones that we
subdivision
can
rules
do.
and regs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. For subdivision rules and regs, are there any things that we can reconsider, whether they're, I guess, obligation to plow or things like that, that would have helped us with some of these developments that have been having issues over the last, several years?
Yes. And
I mean,
those don't require a town vote, which is,
yeah, those don't require a town vote, correct? But even though, I mean, on that specific one, the obligation to plow, I mean, I don't think that really would have changed much on moderator way, but
Um,
I'm all for any updates to those that
Yeah,
we
maybe,
can do.
maybe updates to rules and regs when the construction process does not go well, when, when the developer either runs out of money or maybe in some circumstances where, the residents are gonna, have to pay for things.
and
we are a bit restricted on that and what we can hold funds for under state law, but we can probably add a few things.
Pam, one of the things that was kicked around on both subdivisions was the whole issue of, as we get closer to the end, the cost to complete, that were there to be a failure to perform, the town would be stuck with. Is there any way that that can be revisited throughout, or as we get towards the end of the process, towards the town acceptance? Because I think we find ourselves, I mean, a classic case where, sounds to me anyway, like there may have been degradation of stuff that had been put in, and it actually is going to cost more to repair those than it would have taken to do it properly and expeditiously in the beginning. So as degradation of the civil infrastructure begins, we find ourselves with a cost to complete actually going up, not down.
Yeah, so at the time of request for the setting of the bond and any future reductions, you can consider degradation, but you have to release it once it's complete. You can't hold funds just for general items that you think may degrade, if that makes sense the way I worded that. So it has to be on the conditions at the time the bond's revisited. You can't anticipate things will degrade and keep money for that. It doesn't, the subdivision rules and regs don't allow for that. The state law doesn't allow for that.
You mentioned revisiting the bond, which I believe is a thing that we definitely don't really do that. Like, we release money from the bonds and we talk about where things are, but we never at some point have like a full reinspection, say, well, here are additional things that were required that weren't on the initial bond. Is that sort of the thing that you're talking about, Pam? Like, we're allowed to do that?
Well, so typically, I don't know how you issue your subdivision approvals, but typically I don't like to go beyond 3 years for initial approval, depending on the size of the project. And then that requires the developer to come back in for an extension of time. and opens the project up for conditions again, and also to revisit the bond and the security agreements during that process. So that's typically how I've dealt with it in the past, just to keep funds secure. You seem to have a lot of defaulting subdivisions. That's not been my experience. I've dealt with, I think, 2 in my career, and I think you have 2 right now. Yep. So 2 over 26 years of what my experience has been, and it's not very common, but
yeah, these are the only 2 that we've had as far as anyone can remember in town.
So that can be revisited after 3 years.
that's how I've dealt with it. Yeah.
And we've certainly provided extensions to, I mean, there were like the road, you know, we would give a date for road completion, and if the date goes by, then the applicant would need to come back in to, you know, in the case of at least one of the subdivisions, though, it was like, I mean, we could have asked for more bond money, but they didn't have it. Yeah, we wouldn't have gotten it. And at that point, we're kind of back to, okay, well, what do we do? Do we pull the permit? Do we shut the project down? You know, what do you do with the existing residents? It's just, there just aren't a lot of great things to do with an unresponsive developer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if anywhere where we can tighten those things up, or maybe have more checks or whatever, like, I mean, all in favor of that stuff.
I don't think there's an absolute foolproof way, but we can institute things to try and help it be more successful. Yeah.
Okay. And anything else from you, Pam, on the planner report?
I think that was it.
Okay. The next item of business was approval of minutes. I saw minutes for September 13th. I don't know if I saw the minutes.
No, I didn't know if they were done or if I should
that's
plan
right.
on.
Yeah, Jim, were you gonna do the other minutes?
Which dates, Mike?
What's that?
Which dates?
July 26th and August 16th.
Yeah, is that what we're gonna? Yes.
Okay.
I guess
the July 26th one should have been a pretty short meeting.
Yes.
So why don't we just do the September one that we have before us?
Yep. So I reviewed the September 13th. Yeah. So if no one else had any issues, I will make a motion to approve the planning board minutes for September 13th, 2023.
Second.
Michael Gore.
Aye.
Robert Romer.
Aye.
Austin Groner.
Aye.
Michael Lau.
Aye.
Eric Nyland.
Aye.
Jim, you were absent, so.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I think that is the end of the agenda. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to bring up?
I had one other thing.
Sure.
I'd like, this wasn't a huge deal because the revisions were relatively minor, but I'd like to, and I don't know, maybe this is your practice, but when we request revisions, and I'd like to give a deadline of a week prior to the meeting to receive information. I don't know if that's your practice or not, but it's really difficult to turn around an accurate review in a day.
Yeah, I mean, so we've certainly had the time when applicants send stuff to us the day of, and we say no way, depending on what it is that we need to review. I mean, in this case, this wasn't super controversial for 580, and I'd be willing to make to hear this, but I agree with you. It's better to set the precedent that things need to be turned in, certain, if not a week, then maybe 72 hours. I don't know, some number, but I mean, and generally it's you, Pam, who we're going to rely on to do it. So if you want a week, I mean, we can,
I'd like a week. That really only gives 4.5 days really, so for
yeah,
review, and there's a lot of other stuff going on, so
yeah, so.
I would
the
like a
board-
week.
The board will
For
definitely support
larger
you.
projects, yeah.
Sure, definitely. And you and I can work on those things as they happen, and I'm more than willing to hold the line with developers on that.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else?
No, please provide comments on the goals. We're meeting tomorrow,
Oh, okay, what time are you meeting?
7.
Okay, I will try to look at those.
And I think we're looking at the week of October 23rd for the meeting. Is that
Yeah, that's the current thinking.
the current? Yeah. I know we have a planning board meeting the 25th.
Yeah, our next meeting is the October 11th, it looks like.
No, we canceled that one. So we're gonna have one meeting on the 25th with the
Okay.
18th as
All
needed,
right,
I
so
think was
you
the,
weren't available on the 11th. Okay, so 25th is our next meeting, and then
yeah, and that'll
18th.
be the 2 backland lots through special permit.
Yep. Has
There'll be a
anything else
hearing for
come
that.
in?
I have nothing else in now,
Okay, yeah, that's perfect then.
but I'll put the zoning bylaw and topics on the agenda, and we can go through that in better detail.
Okay, if there is nothing else, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Oh, are we doing roll call for that?
No, or we
I
can
thought
just
we weren't.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
thank
We'll
you.
see you later.
Have a good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.
Take
care.
Bye.